In this video, I'm going to tell you why counterplans are strategic and give you an example of a counterplan on the laws topic. So before we talk about counterplans any further, I want to talk about why they're strategic, and I want to go back to our original example. So I gave the example 2 videos ago that I should buy a Tesla, and that was my affirmative, and that the counterplan was a used Camry. So you might be thinking through all these counterplan videos, like, why would I even read a counterplan in the first place? Why are they strategic? Essentially, counterplans are strategic because they steal the affirmative. Counterplans are meant to take an affirmative advantage and make it their own. The purpose of a counterplan is to mitigate the affirmative in a way that you no longer have to answer the affirmative's contentions or advantages in the debate, because the counterplan also solves those same things in the debate. So the reason that a counterplan like the used Camry is strategic is that it solves the advantage of going to work faster. So maybe in this debate, the affirmative would need a second advantage. Maybe they'd have an advantage that says, in a Tesla, Scott would be cool. Now, if I had a counterplan that had a used Camry, it would certainly resolve or solve or do this get Scott to work faster advantage. However, depending on your point of view, you probably don't think a used Camry is cool, or if you do think it's cool, it's definitely not as cool as a Tesla. So that would be a strategic advantage in this debate against this counterplan, because that would be an advantage that's very unique to the plan that this specific counterplan does not solve. So maybe there would be a more strategic counterplan if these were the two contentions rather than just one. So again, the reason counterplans are strategic is that they make it so you don't have to debate the affirmative case at all, because your affirmative case or your counterplan acts as the defensive mitigating factor against the case. When they try to do impact calculus that says we outweigh, they can't do that now because the counterplan also solves those same things, so they can't outweigh because you also solve those things. So that's why counterplans are strategic. Counterplans steal the affirmative. They try to solve the affirmative so that the negative doesn't have to debate the advantages anymore and can rather debate their disadvantage instead. Let's look at a specific example of this. So the specific example that I have today is the regulation counterplan. So this regulation counterplan does a bunch of different things, and you'll note that it doesn't ban. So it does all of these different things that are not a ban to try to make it so that lethal autonomous weapons are safe and not as escalatory. So, there's protocols to try to get rid of escalation. There's other measures that are developed to try to stop proliferation. So all of the different components to the affirmative case that they say would lead to bad things happening, you're reading a counterplan that says, oh, we're just going to do some different things that also solve those same problems, but we're going to have the added benefit that we don't do a ban, and that by not doing a ban, we don't link to things like the AIDA. So the counterplan is going to be better than the affirmative, because while the affirmative links to the AIDA or any other disadvantage, the counterplan does not link to that disadvantage. So counterplans are not only strategic because they solve the affirmative, but they're also strategic because they're going to avoid, hopefully, a disadvantage that the affirmative plan links to that the counterplan does not link to. So that's why this counterplan would be strategic. This Arkin evidence talks about a lot of different things that you could do, including a moratorium, research, all sorts of different verification measures, science exchanges, training, basically anything you could ever think of under the sun. Apparently there's 5 components that make it so that the impacts the affirmative talk about are less likely to happen because the counter plan is also solving those same things just through a different mechanism. So going back to the last video, you'll see this part right here would be the text. That would be the first part of the counter plan in the structure. The second part is the solvency advocate. So they haven't even put a tag for this, and they just put it right in here for the solvency for the counter plan. You'll see that this counter plan actually has a second piece of evidence in it too. That's just like an additional piece of solvency evidence that says that regulations work and a ban doesn't. So it's going to say that the counter plan is more effective. However, in order for them to win on the counter plan, they're going to need a DA. They're going to need some reason to prefer the counter plan over the affirmative in the debate. So that net benefit, that thing that the counter plan does not cause to happen, is the reason why the counter plan is ultimately best in the debate. It's not that it solves the affirmative, that's just its defensive mechanism. The reason to prefer it is that it avoids the link to a disadvantage in the debate. So that is counterplans, why they're strategic, and a specific example of one on our topic. I'll see you in the next video.